Hi, Brittany. So nice to meet you. Sophia Soto with Awards Radar. Thank you so much for your time today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Of
Nice to meet
course. I've been following you in your career since Pitch Perfect, and it's so awesome to see all these amazing shows you have coming out right now. Congratulations.
you. Thanks so much.
Of course. So to start off, I want to ask, what is your personal favorite aspect of this particular genre, and why do you think it is so addicting to watch?
I think I'm always drawn to psychological thrillers and puzzle pieces in a way. It makes my mind feel like I'm serving a purpose or like I'm not just mindlessly turning my brain off. I'm actually trying to figure something out, and somehow that makes me feel comfortable. And I think that people really like these types of shows because there's nuance in the characters, there's twists and turns, and you're trying to figure it out. Um, and it's not mindless. And sometimes that helps your brain in a lot of ways. And I know it does for mine.
Do you find your experience as like a fan and a viewer kind of crossing off with your experience as an actor when you're doing these type of projects where you're just like constantly thinking and trying to like get 10 steps ahead of where your character is going?
Well, with The Beast in Me, that was actually for the first time how it actually went. We only had the first two episodes written and we only had seen the first two episodes, and the writers and producers were sort of developing the script as it was going. Obviously, they had an overarching understanding of where it was going to go, but it was not told to us. So that was the first time that I was trying to formulate a character without knowing where she ends up, which was quite challenging, but it actually turned out to be really rewarding when the character I created turned out to be exactly what was inevitably written. You feel like you're solving a mystery in your workplace as well.
I feel like there's no one that knows the character better than the actor, especially when they step into the character's shoes and get to do an episode or two first. So since everything was still being written, were you able to be like, I feel like she would do this, or I feel like we should include this somehow, some way, and have that play out?
I mean, it's above my pay grade to try to give tips to, the producers and creators of Homeland and the writers that we had.
They're brilliant.
Yeah, like I don't think that that should have happened and was not asked for. And the only thing that I do think was really great of them was that they wanted my input in terms of where I think I could go, and I advocated for myself, I guess, in a way of being open to the challenge. I think earlier in my career, I probably wouldn't have been as vocal about, um, you know, yes, I can take on a challenging twist or something that you can write for me and things like that. And so I was very proud of myself for being able to ask for those things. Did I think that was going to change anything or do anything? No, but I was very, very happy that they knew that I could handle the task that they were writing.
Your character on the surface kind of appears to just be the wife, and her role ends up being so much more significant in the end. What is so appealing about a redemption arc for an underestimated character, specifically like a survivor like this?
I think that the characters that I really respond to and relate to are seemingly one way and are underestimated in a lot of ways, maybe from being a woman or being a woman that from the outside is, just the wife and blonde and whatever those markings are that people think, people have it together, I guess. I really like playing the characters that sort of subvert that trope and ask questions about why we assume those types of things on people like that. And so this was no different in that way, where she gets to really, as the episodes continue on, you see even in the flashback episode that she's not someone who comes from this world, and it was sort of a veneer in a lot of ways, and really was a survivor in terms of putting herself in the right place at the right time and inevitably getting what she wanted.
Yeah. And going off of that flashback episode, why do you think it was so important for the audiences to see it rather than just hear about it in dialogue? Because I feel like so many times you're kind of given information through dialogue, but when you have a flashback episode like this, it just adds so much more to the experience. And I'm sure you feel the similar way as an actor.
In lesser hands, a flashback episode could be seen as cheesy or jumping the shark, or you always are like hoping that they don't do the back into a dream sequence or something. But these producers and writers and the creators that we had are so intelligent with their story and with making sure that these characters really have like a full arc. And in order to understand that arc, you really have to get the minutia of what kind of makes Niall implode, and also which switches Nina, and also what is the reason for it all. And I don't think just seeing that in dialogue would have really hammered home the ending as much. And so I was really excited that they got to that we got to perform that too, because I really like showing how Nina um, had transformed. And you know, you don't see the transformation, but you see the before and then inevitably the after.
I feel like especially for your character, it was so important because the other characters you could kind of fill in the blanks or see the similarities, but for your character in particular, it was like here she was and here she is now, and imagining, letting your mind kind of run wild of all the stuff that happened to her in between. Did you get to do that, like kind of just fill in the blanks for yourself, even if it's just kind of background for the character as you were ending her story?
Sure. I mean, the flashback episode was so helpful for me because you really got to see her as a sparring partner in a lot of ways, and that she wasn't afraid of him and she was willing to walk away. Not only was she willing to walk away, but she was making a really strategic choice of being a survivor, which inevitably undid the entire, problem life of Maddie, I guess. But I think, you really see that their relationship started in like a contentious sort of way, and that's now going to help embed the fight scene that was in episode 5 or something, where you sort of understand that they've always been
Yeah.
this type of way, and that really that's why she became someone that he saw as a person that he could be interested in. Um, and I think that having that sparring partner is really important to him, but he completely underestimated her um, willfulness to get what she wanted.
As men often do with women, which we'll get
Yeah.
we'll get into that later. But Nina's first reaction when finding out that she was pregnant was that her husband didn't want kids. Why do you think that was so important to show in terms of what do you think it says about her and their marriage, where it comes to the fact that she wants kids and how she personally feels about the situation is an afterthought rather than the first reaction?
I think that was something that we talked a lot about with Howard and with Antonio too, is that she understands the role that she needs to undertake in order to be this way, and she is scared of him in a lot of ways, but she doesn't necessarily consciously know why. I think subconsciously she probably does, but it's too hard and it's too terrifying for her to wrestle with the things that she's done that could have um
Played a part.
played a part in this. So she's not willing to go there. And so within that, I think she has to kind of maintain this sort of role of being the loving, doting wife that adheres to his wishes, because then if she doesn't, then it starts to unravel and she's starting to look at herself. And so I think she's doing this as a way to protect herself by not asking many questions or asking for what she wants. And she wants a baby, she wants a different type of life, but um, needing that and wanting that could unravel a lot of things that she's believing about herself.
What do you think was going through her head when Niall told her about Aggie? Do you think she had her doubts or do you think she believed him?
We played that scene many different ways, and it was really interesting how that edited together, because as it was originally written and we played it this way, that she was sort of a little bit more on to Niall and maybe not believing him as much earlier on. But I think they chose right, that she sort of she has to not believe it until the very end. I think the end scene in episode 8, where she's sort of baiting him and you find out later that she's recording him, was a really difficult scene to play, because you also had to believe that although she was recording him, and if you watch the scene again, there is a part of her that didn't want to believe it. So she's recording him on the off chance that maybe Aggie is right, but her whole soul and body is wanting it to be wrong. yet she's trying to bait him by being this tiny little animal that seems very small and contained, as if not um, to anger him until the precise moment. And so all of those things were in that scene, and I think that was really strategic and difficult to play.
What was it like for you to balance that? And also, do you think it changed how she viewed herself in terms of, the way he turned around and was like, you knew this. Like you knew what happened deep down because it
Right.
wasn't something she was willing to face, but in order to get the proof, she had to face that for herself as well.
I think that's a really good and open question that many viewers could. I mean, I guess it's sort of up in the air. Is that, does she really wrestle with the morality of her decisions? Did she come to that understanding that this might have been her own fault? Is that last shot of her looking at her son, those questions that she's playing in her mind of like, how much did I partake in this? I think in a lot of ways she has to once again take on the role of, I can't go there and I can't think about those things because I've come already so far. I have this son and I have this life. My husband is now, dead. I think that I think even think in that moment, in that episode 8, when the fight scene, I think she really does believe that although she told him the truth, she was not doing that in like a manipulative way to get something that's what she wanted. Now, the viewer might think differently, but I don't think that Nina thought that about herself in that moment.
Yeah. And why do you think Aggie knew to go to Nina for help? Because there's so many things she could have done, obviously, but before she turned herself in, she went and pleaded her case to Nina. It's like she just knew she would understand.
I think it was a woman's intuition of constantly being undermined and having that relationship that Aggie has with Niall, where she sees firsthand how he treats my character Nina, but also how he's treating Aggie, and how over time how much that must wear someone down. It's in the very first episode when I meet her, and she drops off the wine, that he sort of has a slight against me, and I try to like kind of, I think I kind of try to reach out to her and like grab her arm and like give it a little squeeze, and I think at first watch you kind of see that as, oh, she's being a little manipulative, or maybe she's doing something that's a little overboard in terms of touching someone right away. But I mean, upon second watch, you could maybe see it as like a cry for help, or someone being like, there's another woman here that I can maybe relate to. And I think when you watch the show again, if anyone ever has time, you see that I think Nina is in a lot of ways trying to form connections with all the women on the show because she's desperately trying to stay alive. And so at the end, when Claire comes to her, it's because I think Nina has left those sort of like breadcrumbs along the way, being like, I see you and I do have a connection with other women.
Yeah. And going off of that, because I do like to rewatch scenes or shows multiple times to kind of get those little breadcrumbs. For you as an actress, how do you approach that? Do you read a script multiple times? Do you read it through and then maybe start over and read it through, make notes, anything like that to kind of be the small significant moments that you wouldn't notice upon the first read?
Definitely. I mean, I just read a script for the new season of Hunting Wives. We just got another episode last night, and I read it multiple times. I think because my first time reading it, I'm always sort of looking at the macro view of the whole episode, and I'm not necessarily like zeroing in on the my part or things that I can do with it. And I think that was the same for Beast and Me. Is like every time we got a script, we had to read it multiple times because we didn't know what was going to happen. And so it was really important that we got as much from that script as possible in order to inform the characters. Um, because we were sort of playing Mad Libs in a lot of ways. And that was kind of fun in a lot of ways.
And since you were getting the scripts, was there a piece of the puzzle when you did eventually get the whole thing that you were like, "Oh, this really makes sense and clicks for the character and wasn't something I was thinking," or just felt right in how you were bringing her to life? If there's a specific moment, specific scene, or a specific line that really like was the piece of the puzzle for you.
Um, I think I was really happy with the flashback episode because I was sort of playing her like someone who had probably not come from that world and yet was putting on. I said to Antonio at the first rehearsal, like, I just feel like she's playing house. And I had nothing, no reason to go off of that, other than I'd read only one script at that point. And I feel like this is performative in a lot of ways. She's saying like, "Honey, we need to take care of the dogs," and she's walking around with these, cashmere sweaters, and I just thought I do find that this is maybe on face value the typical wife, but I feel like there's more to it than that. And so when I finally read the flashback episode, I was really relieved that what I had been playing was spot on, that this was someone who hadn't come from that world. And you see in the mirror in the flashback episode was almost like a costume that she was inevitably going to wear.
What is your favorite part about two women teaming up to take down this rich, powerful man? Because I feel like that was just the perfect way to wrap it up.
Yeah, someone made a comment about how every show that I've been on lately is just like women taking down the
We
patriarchy in a
love
way.
it. We
Like
love it.
it was
Please keep
Murdoch
doing it.
murders and hunting wives in some sort of way. And I'm just really honored that people want to see me like help out in that way for a good cause. Um, but I think it's something that society has been looking at in, for the past couple years, and um, I think these are things that really get people passionate about what we can do about the systemic sort of norm that we've all been accustomed to. So I I don't think people should be undermining women ever. And these are the shows that are proving it because guess how all these shows turned out? The men are gone. Yeah.
Exactly.
They're in jail, they're dead. Yeah.
I want to ask obviously about that final scene, her having her son in her arms, but also seeing the book on the floor, you kissing the baby's forehead and saying, "You're going to be okay. Like, it's okay." Why do you think that was kind of the perfect way to end her story? And also, how did you imagine what was kind of going on in her head? I know as a viewer, that was a scene that stuck out to me where I was like, there's so much she could be thinking about in this small moment, even if there's not a lot of dialogue. So, how did you kind of want to play it?
Sure. I mean, there was a couple things. I mean, I think if I think about too many things in my mind, it gets like muddled and confusing. But I did go into that scene knowing the macro view of what that scene meant to me, which was that this is a systemic problem. This is a generational problem. This is a patriarchal problem where these men are raised and grow up to be these types of people that get away with things like that. And I feel like I'm holding my son in my arm, knowing that it's up to me, that I have the power to make sure that this new little man doesn't continue on this legacy. And is it a nature versus nurture thing? Is it a do I have the power to change this, or is this a gene situation that is going to be passed down because he is a part of like a psycho, you know, um, yeah, that somebody has that sort of psychopathic tendency. And I think that's scary for her. And she's saying it's okay to him, but I'm hoping that's also she's saying it's okay to herself, that she made this choice and she has to now be okay with it.
I have chills. What a beautiful answer, because I feel like it's something that a lot of people underestimate, the power of a mother wanting the best for her son and being cautious of those choices and not just letting society kind of take its course and being like, well, guys will be guys.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many different ways to interpret the beast in me. I know that that wasn't what they were meaning to do, but I do think that ending scene is really like a callback to the beginning of why the show is called that, is that we all have this tendency and this propensity to turn bad, to have something inside of us that's animalistic and primal and terrible, but we have to choose to rise against it. And so in that moment she's hoping that she can do that for her son, that he's going to be different this time.
Brittany, thank you so much again for your time. I really had such an amazing time speaking with you about this show. It was incredible. I devoured it in a weekend with my
Oh,
family, and I'm glad everyone is loving it as much as I am. Thank you again.
of course. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.